At its heart, Go West portrays the simple bond between man and beast, each saved by the other's kindness. Although considered Keaton's most direct attempt at pathos, the fact Buster plays emotional scenes with a cow suggests a wry sense of irony. Even the character names Friendless and Brown Eyes come from D.W. Griffith's epic melodrama Intolerance. Skillfully directed by Keaton himself, Go West remains a remarkable cinematic achievement. That's Gus Leonard as the stingy store owner. A veteran of the Hal Roach studio, Gus appeared in over 80 Harold Lloyd films and starred as Cap in the R-Gang comedy Mush and Milk. Going east is a disaster, but Buster also travels north and south, cut from the final release. Staged beside a partial outdoor set, the remaining scenery was painted on glass. Filming the set through the glass creates a seamless vista of Buster shivering in the snow. Buster visited a southern plantation using the same glass painting technique. Painted snow and cotton appear in these north and south publicity stills as well. Go west, young man. Inspiration strikes behind the California warehouse near the Santa Fe Freight Depot, today part of the downtown Arts District. Converted to lofts, the opposite corner portrays the apartment in the TV comedy New Girl. In June 1925, Keaton and crew headed east from Hollywood to Kingman, Arizona, more than 300 miles away. Keaton filmed on location far more than any other comedian, staging productions all across California and later in Oregon and New York. The production was based in Kingman, with easy access to food and supplies, and even ice to keep the cameras cool in the desert heat. These barrels come from the Kingman Valley store. Buster did not get his kicks on Route 66. The famous highway passing through town wasn't given that route number until the following year. Among its other Hollywood connections, Kingman later renamed its main street for character actor Andy Devine, a native son, and Carole Lombard and Clark Gable were quietly married there in 1939 during a break from filming Gone with the Wind. Certain loading dock scenes were filmed in Hackberry, but Keaton spent nearly 3 weeks filming at Tap Duncan's Valley Ranch, only accessible, even today, by a lonely dirt road. Truly in the middle of nowhere, the Valley Ranch once stood near the north end of Antares Road, more than 50 miles north of Kingman. When visiting in person, photographer Marie Muller was struck by the timelessness of the remote setting. The blue sky, red dirt, and towering mountains all must have looked exactly the same to Buster and his crew nearly a century before. We first meet Brown Eyes learning she can't earn her keep by giving enough milk. Buster spent 10 days training Brown Eyes, leading her around on a rope and giving her treats. He placed the rope with a string and then a thread until she followed him without question. Buster doesn't seem to understand how this works. Brown Eyes and this giant mule were raised in Hollywood and brought out to Arizona. Brown Eyes was reportedly insured for the cost of the production and traveled with 2 dairy farm handlers and a local vet. Kathleen Myers needs to focus on her work, too. Buster doesn't seem to understand mule riding either. Buster meets Brown Eyes as she limps by with a rock stuck in her hoof. Brown Eyes returns the favor, saving Buster after catching his foot in a hole. Looking south, Buster and Brown Eyes head home, their first day of friendship. Buster realizes he must rescue Brown Eyes from being branded. Studying details for this essay, something looked unusual in the background. First, Buster painlessly shaves a cattle brand on Brown Eyes and shows his handiwork to the rancher. Next, Kathleen beckons Buster to join her at the well to help remove a splinter. Looking closely, both scenes were filmed in front of a painted backdrop. A well was added, but matching details appear in both scenes. Very clever, Buster. But there's more. It's emotionally powerful when Buster first realizes someone, Brown Eyes, actually likes him. Later, Buster pleads for her life at the same locale. But again, these scenes were also filmed against a painted backdrop. Very clever indeed. The same backdrop also appears in this publicity still. Not this time. Buster won't be late for dinner as we savor our final view from the ranch. When you say that, smile. Long known as the Great Stoneface, will Buster finally crack? Audiences squealed expectantly at the inside joke. Buster not only hijacks this old Western trope, he tops it, mimicking Lillian Gish in Broken Blossoms, forced to smile on command by her abusive father. Despite his deadpan reputation, Buster smiled frequently during his early films working with Roscoe Arbuckle. The cattle loading scenes were filmed in Hackberry, 30 miles south of the Valley Ranch. Located along historic Route 66, it's easy to visit today. It's also easy to spot the matching ridgelines. The lone Hackberry General Store is a good place to buy a soda or some gas. As the child star in his family's vaudeville act, Buster grew up traveling the country by rail. Simply put, Buster Keaton loved trains and used them whenever he could. He posed for these photos just for fun. The runaway train scenes in Go West must have been good practice for making the General. The mailbag drop was filmed beside the former Santa Fe station in Pasadena. Buster filmed scenes here for The Goat, as did Charlie Chaplin for The Idol Class. Given the distinctive rain-crossed street lamp set back, this was likely filmed 60 miles from Hollywood in Riverside. How cinematic! Buster walks past the camera as the train rounds a corner into the Santa Fe Freight Depot downtown. The Coca-Cola building on the corner of 4th has been converted to lofts. Next comes another view of the California warehouse. Around back is where Buster was inspired to go west. Known as the Binford Building, also converted to lofts, this Arts District landmark bears a striking mural. The freight yard is now an apartment complex, and the long loading dock building a school of architecture. More than 100 live cattle were set loose during this scene. How did they control them? The bridge was built later in 1930. The home to Maxwell House Coffee is now converted to office space. For decades, Los Angeles imposed a 13-story height limit on buildings. The lone exception was for City Hall at 27 stories, opening in 1928. I wonder what Keaton and his crew would think of this modern skyline. Looking south, here's Buster's former Hollywood studio on Lillian Way in Eleanor. Across the street stands the much larger Metro studio. Buster filmed nearly every scene with the cattle on this small backlot street. Notice the Metro Studio Tower. Metro closed the year before to become part of Metro Goldwyn Mayer in Culver City, but the backlot set was available for Buster to use. Notice the same Metro Tower to the right. The set is less than 2 stories tall. Buster reconfigured the set many times. The large central arch later becomes a Turkish bath, and then a police station. Notice the 5 arched windows to the left of the central arch. Looking neglected, they stand years later in this view over the backlot fence. Buster used this 5-arch set in several films, including this scene from Cops. They first built a modest intersection next to the 5-arch set. Later, they closed it over to make a continuous row of buildings for the long tracking shots. With skillful editing, Keaton created the illusion of a cattle stampede on this tiny set. The Keaton studio stood only a few blocks from Hollywood Boulevard to the north. This closer view towards Hollywood Boulevard shows where Buster and Brown Eyes walked down Cahuenga past a quick lunch restaurant to the parking lot next door. These buildings remain. Buster leaves Brown Eyes at the parking lot. The warehouse at back has been converted into lofts. Perhaps the most popular filming spot in town, the 1600 block of Cahuenga appears in dozens of silent movies, including 8 Keaton films and 3 by Harold Lloyd. For example, the same quick lunch appears early in Safety Last. Buster's mother, Myra, made later on-screen appearances, but she isn't the woman in this picture frame. Buster's father, Joe, played parts in many Keaton films. Here, he receives a cow tongue facial before leaping onto a hat rack stand. Buster cleverly repurposed his country club set from his prior movie 7 Chances into a department store. But look at that tall woman in the center. It's Buster's friend and mentor, Roscoe Arbuckle, playing Babe London's mother in this single scene. A shorter woman plays her mother in every other scene in the movie. To lure the cattle, Buster puts on a Red Devil costume. Pacing back and forth, audiences back then would have instantly recognized he was mimicking Felix the cat. As Buster runs west along Hollywood Boulevard, the camera car appears reflected in the window, along with a young boy riding on the running board. What a crowning special effect! Filmed on the backlot, it shows the entire city street with the upper floors painted on glass matched to the live action below. The effect is so convincing, I once drove around downtown trying to find this street. Looking north, this grainy photo shows the Go West backlot, Buster's studio, and the corner on Santa Monica Boulevard where Buster staged this fire hose scene just a block away. Buster rejoins Brown Eyes near the corner of Melrose and La Brea, looking less glamorous today. The Union Stockyard was enormous, just 5 miles southeast from downtown. Because the front office was so imposing, the simple office appearing in the movie was likely a set. The livestock sales pavilion appears at back. All is well. Buster moves closer to chat, reassuring Kathleen and the audience, as they literally turn the corner toward a new life. What a visually eloquent closing scene. Though considered a lesser Keaton film, Go West remains a staggering accomplishment. Think of the logistics. Summer filming in the desert, hundreds of miles from home. Training farm animals to perform on command. Filming atop moving trains. Wrangling live cattle downtown. And employing special effects and backdrops so convincingly we don't even notice. It all appears effortless on the screen, thanks to Buster Keaton's incredible talent as a comedian and a filmmaker.